family. Good morning and Happy New Year. So the spiritual discipline or practice of fasting. We've been invited to share a few things about this. To be completely honest with you, I have not been a fan of fasting. Fasting brings out my inner 2-year-old that wants what she wants when she wants it, doesn't want to say no. It's also the point where I go, I buckle down. What's my focus when I fast? It's doing it right. I want to do it right. That inner 2-year-old comes out, and there's always a huge dialogue in front of the fridge or the pantry. And oftentimes the 2-year-old wins. So I would go to a place of shame, guilt, frustration. I don't want to fail. I don't want to do it wrong. So I stop. Problem is, my focus is me. I didn't focus on why am I fasting? Am I fasting to do it right, to just not eat? It's only been recently I've learned that these practices are to draw us closer to God, to bring God into the practice, to show me who I am. Where are my weaknesses? Where are my shortcomings? Where do I miss the mark? Where am I broken? God, show me those things. But those are hard questions to ask if the God you're asking, if your perception of him is as disappointed in how much you mess up, how much you fail, if your perception of him is as sitting back, waiting for you to figure it out, get it right, do it well. For a long time, that was my perception of God. That's how I experienced him. I didn't experience him as delighting in me, as me being his beloved daughter, who he was pleased with purely because he created me. So in the fight of entering into fasting, it was that Romans 7, what I want to do is not what I do, what I hate I do. I can't do it by myself. So when my focus is me gutting it out and not bringing it to God and finding God in those things, it's always going to be hard. And there is no joy, and there's no learning, and there's no depth. It stays superficial and flat. That's not what I want. It's only been the past few years that I've learned, once I made that connection, that my perception of God was my own negative self-talk I was projecting onto him. When I made that connection and knew that the God I was thinking of or experiencing wasn't the God I read about in the Bible. It's not what he said. He created me in love. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. He knows me completely. I need to feel safe to bring him those wounds, those broken places, to feel safe when he shows me those things, that I trust that this is a God who loves me completely, has good for me. When we ask the question, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Show me if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. We have to go into any of these practices knowing that the God we are bringing that question to, who wants to show us these things, lovingly, gently, he wants to join us in showing us where we miss the mark. Because God is the only one who does the transforming. My own self-will, my willpower doesn't do it. I can gut it out, we can all gut it out to a certain extent, and then we hit a wall, and it becomes hard. But when we bring God into it and we consent to God working in us and Him doing the transforming, it's amazing what happens. And we can really experience God's depth of His love for us. A book by Trevor Hudson we've been reading, Jim and I have been reading lately, called Seeking God. It's a wonderful book. It's my new favorite. He says, "We will ask God to reveal our sinful tendencies only when we know without a doubt that we are unconditionally loved by God. For this reason, before we start any spiritual practices, it's critically important to have a strong sense of God's personal, merciful, and creative love. We need to know deep down that right now God earnestly wants to be our divine friend in mutual partnership with us. Then we are ready for God to begin revealing the hidden roots of our sin. After all, God lovingly sought us long before we began to seek Him." "For you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well."
So, let's see, I think I'm pushing the right button. Okay, what is a discipline? We've been throwing that term around. And we're so excited to be able to share this because especially with the 5.5 months teaching on the kingdom of God, one thing that we're always sensitive to is like, so how do I bring the kingdom to Jim Long as it is in heaven so that I can be, as a group, we can bring it to Atlanta? So spiritual disciplines are not righteousness. No matter how well you do fasting, no matter how well you do solitude, no matter how well you do silence, no matter how well you do Bible study, all those are disciplines. They are not righteousness. They are tools so that we can be closer to God, that helps us give more consent to God so that we can fully live in the kingdom of God, bring that kingdom into our heart first. So that's an important thing. This is a quote from Dallas Willard about what a discipline is. This is a quote, well, boy, that's sensitive. So that, let's see. Okay. This is a quote from John Wesley, because for a time in the church, fasting was just put away because it was abused in a lot of different ways. Let's see. I love this quote from The Spirit of the Disciplines. So the books that we're quoting from on spiritual disciplines would be Richard Foster's Celebration of Discipline. It's been out since 1978. Fantastic. The Spirit of the Disciplines by Dallas Willard. I love this because this quote, and I'm not going to drain this by reading this to you, you know how to read, but it's about what fasting can really do, what it gives us access to. And as somebody who has, for most of my life, had a very complicated relationship with food, then this is a discipline that has been a struggle in a lot of different ways. But I think the things that Lindsay talked about were so great to just lay it out. And so we've got this next week before we start on the 9th as a group fast together to really pray and ask God to give you ideas. You know, if you've got some medical conditions or if you're on certain medications, probably doing a no food fast, sunrise to sunset, may not be the smartest thing for your health. But we've got this week, if you haven't been doing it already, to really ask God, give me some ideas. What are some things that I can fast from? Wouldn't kill any of us to stay off Facebook for, 20 days. It wouldn't hurt us to give up other things. But if you're physically able, food is that part of us that really begins to tap into a lot of different things like Lindsay was talking about. And so I want to offer this as well, that when you're fasting, if you couple it with another spiritual discipline, let's say service, or if you want to get really radical, service that's done in secret, where you don't tell anybody as you're fasting, and don't discuss it that way, but really make that as a sacrifice to God. God will bring things up in you, I really believe, as he does in all of us, that he wants us to focus on. You know, give me ideas. What are the things I need to let go of? What is this dependency that I need to let go of in order to experience the kingdom of God? The how part of what Jordan was talking about today. Yes, we want to live in the kingdom of God. How do I do that? Well, there's putting off and there's putting on, right? And so fasting is a great tool for that. The last quote I'll put up there is about a group fast, because that's what we're going to be doing. And I think when we think about, I mean, there's lots of things that we can do, thinking of the millions of Christians from the first century till now, in all different kinds of traditions, people reading the Bible together, fasting, praying. When we do this as a group here at North River, we're joining together in a practice. And all the spiritual practices are amplified when you do them together, and then you reflect on them. So we appreciate this opportunity to be able to share about the upcoming fast.